Well, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Jim Davidson. I'm the assistant conductor of the symphony, and I'm on the music staff here at First Calvary. So welcome to Behind the Baton, featuring Sandbox Percussion. A couple of announcements before we get started. If you notice, the room looks different than it normally does. We have tomorrow evening, we're the first time ever on First Friday Art Walk as a church. So one of our congregants has her work on display, or feel free to mill about if you're not going to come tomorrow. And we'll also have some live music tomorrow. Faith Zimmer, Claire Herzog, and some of their friends doing bluegrass sets. Can we hear it? It's a little buzzy. How about I just talk loud? Is that better? There you go. So tomorrow evening, we're on the First Friday Art Walk, which I believe is between 6 and 8 o'clock. You're welcome to come over for that. And then if you notice the setup behind me, on Sunday afternoon on our musical offering series is the Central Springfield Community Choir and the Ozark Junior High School Treble Singers combined. So about 100 singers will be up behind us giving a free concert at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. And you're welcome to come to that as well. So without any further commercials, please welcome Kyle and the gentlemen of Sandbox Percussion.
Thanks, man. How's that? Is it still buzzy or is it okay? All right. Well, welcome everybody to Behind the Baton tonight. We're so glad to have you with us in person, and we also want to wave to the camera because we are streaming live to the Facebook page, and we usually get a couple hundred views on there. So welcome if you're watching us on Facebook. And a big special warm welcome to our soloists this concert, Sandbox Percussion. Let's welcome them to Springfield. And you know what? I'm going to let you each introduce yourselves individually, just so we all know who you are. So let's see if that mic is working too.
Yeah, right. We can all share this one if it's working a little better. Okay. My name is Johnny Allen, and I am a member of Sandbox Percussion. We'll just do it now.
My name is Victor. Hi, great to meet all of you. Happy to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Terry, with a Y, and 2 R's. My name is Ian. Nice to meet you all.
Well, welcome to Springfield. We are so excited to have you here. This is the first time, maybe ever, that we've had a percussion ensemble as our soloist. Sue, is that true? Sue Reichling is our principal percussionist, so she would remember, she would know. Because she had to help gather equipment for you for this one. And we're really excited about that. This is kind of neat. So the 4 of you are playing the role that, we will often have a violinist or a pianist doing, one of the major concerto pieces on our concerts. And this piece that we're going to do is pretty new and was written for the 4 of you, which is really exciting. So welcome to Springfield, and let's just start a little bit. I just want to talk first. We'll talk about the piece. You have some things to demonstrate. These are not glasses of water for us to drink. This is we could, but it might mess up things for. So just tell us a little bit about your ensemble and how long you've been a quartet, and just a little bit about Sandbox Percussion.
Yeah, well, we're a percussion quartet from Brooklyn, New York, and we've been a group since 2011. I guess that's kind of when we were sort of on the tail end of our life in school. We met when we were in grad school at the Yale School of Music, and playing chamber music, sort of contemporary percussion chamber music, was a big part of the curriculum that we shared while we were there. It was kind of the thing that we loved to do the most when we were in school. So that was back in 2011, and we loved doing it so much, we were like, maybe we can actually do this outside of school and maybe make it our job. And then we started sort of commissioning composers, getting out there and playing concerts around the US. We started to kind of function as a nonprofit, as I kind of sort of grew from there, but it was humble beginnings in 2011, just out of playing chamber music when we were in grad school.
So you mentioned right off the bat commissioning composers to write pieces for the 4 of you. How much repertoire is there for a percussion quartet that you didn't have to have written? I mean, what is out there already for you?
Not a ton. When we were in school, I think that the pieces that were written sort of in that time, sort of 2010, 11 or so, we were learning some pieces that were already written, pieces that we were really excited about. To name a couple composers, John Cage, Steve Reich were sort of a couple composers that were really sort of pioneering percussion music as chamber music, sort of bringing it to the front of the stage. We were having such a good time learning that music, but then while we were in school, we were also meeting all these wonderful students who were studying composition at school. We were studying percussion, and we were connecting with these wonderful composers who were students at school. They were writing music for all kinds of ensembles and wanted to write music for percussionists as well. So we sort of took that on as our mission when we came out of school to really have that be our number one focus, which is commissioning work by living composers for percussion.
I've got a few questions about that process, that let's put that off toward when we talk about the piece. But what I'm curious about, whenever we have, let's say a violinist here will say, when did you start playing violin? And then when did you decide that you were going to go on as a violinist? When did you each start playing percussion? And then how did you decide that you were going to go to a conservatory and study percussion? This is the three-part question. And what did you think was going to happen with the percussion degree? I mean, did you, and I won't put the words in your mouth, did you think you were going to go into an orchestra? Did you think you were going to be solo percussionist? What were you going to do? What was your idea?
Very good questions. Yeah, so I think the starting place is slightly different for all four of us. I think like many other percussionists in America, a lot of us started as drummers who maybe wanted to be in a rock band or something like that. And I think along the way, I think we could all tell a story of meeting some amazing teacher who slowly showed us some of these other instruments that we call percussion. Drums, that's the instrument we see all the time when you're young, and it looks so cool that you want to play it. But then I think we all learned, like, oh, there's this whole other world to this kind of set of instruments. Sometimes that, like, as young as in band class,
Okay, how many of you were in marching band?
Oh, yeah.
All of you.
Yeah,
me
marching
too.
band outside.
And I was a drum major in marching band, so we got the whole marching band, percussion, and drum major lined up.
But then, so I think, and studying percussion in school, I think a lot of us, maybe we were thinking about, I was thinking about playing in an orchestra, and I think that's music we really love and really enjoy doing, still we enjoy doing, getting to play music in an orchestra. But I think, at some point in grad school, I think we realized, like, oh, like this is this newer music, or playing in this smaller group of musicians somehow was more meaningful for us. There was more. There was, I don't know, a little more. We felt like we had like a really strong artistic input on the music that we were making in this sort of small chamber ensemble. Did I answer all three? I feel like
and I'm curious the rest of you too. Like, what was, a lot of times we'll talk to pianists and they say, oh, I started, when I was 4. Well, my parents were both pianists. So how many of you have parents who are professional percussionists? That's not the same path.
Start zero.
Yeah.
No, I think my parents, music in the house and stuff like that. But I just remember watching these old DVDs my dad had. I don't know if you know the jazz guitarist Pat Metheny. My dad is like really into that guitarist, and so we would like watch these DVDs and amazing drumming in some of these Pat Metheny group performances, and I think I was just like totally fixated by the drums. Now I play wine glasses and all kinds of other weird things, but there's a drum somewhere in there.
Yeah. Any of the rest of you want to tell your history?
Yeah, I mean, very similar. It was like, pots and pans in the kitchen, which is funny because I still play pots and pans.
Right, there you go.
I guess I couldn't really shake it. The first lessons I took were on piano. That was, my parents being like, if you're going to play music, you got to know how to read it and all that good stuff. And so I was still playing the drums for fun, but taking piano lessons, and I think I played a little bit of cello, and I sang in choir, but all the while I was a drummer at heart, and all the, playing in the concert band, I think they wanted me to play the trombone, but I was like, that's it, I've been led astray too many times, I'm going to be the percussionist, and I was like, fine. It was marching band. I think I played in a fife and drum corps, which is like the rope tension drums and a triangle hat, and I think my parents had to help me carry the drum on some of the longer parades, but But yeah, I think in a way, it's like, I think all of us played in some kind of rock band when we were younger. And this is maybe some weirder, like, adult version of a rock band or something.
A percussion quartet, yeah.
Yes, naturally.
The Brooklyn version of a
Exactly. Yeah, so I think, that love we had for making music in small groups, I think has, translated into this form. I don't know if other people have stuff to add.
Okay, well, let me ask a slightly different question, but it's related because you all talk about drum set and of course the unconventional instruments that people already can see in front of us right here. As a conductor, when we listen to auditions for the orchestra, it's very simple if you're a violinist. You come in, you play violin excerpts. It's very simple if you're a trumpet player. If you're a percussionist, we always kind of dread percussion auditions from the side of the panel because we have to hear snare drum and cymbals and bass drum and timpani is usually a separate thing entirely, right? But all of the auxiliary instruments. So when you are developing as a young percussionist, do you specialize in one instrument, or do you have to be just a generalist and learn them all? And then how well can you learn them all? I mean, so I'd be curious to hear.
I think when you start as a percussionist, maybe you kind of are interested in sort of one or two instruments. Those are sort of the instruments that sort of pull you in, like Terry was mentioning the drum set, and then maybe that sort of slowly transitions to the snare drum in symphonic music, which transitions to some other sort of smaller instruments. But to answer your question, it's really you have to kind of be dangerous on everything. That's like what you go to school to learn how to do for classical percussion. You have to learn how to play all kinds of different instruments in a symphonic setting, which is the snare drum. Timpani is a big one, which of course has its own auditions. And then there's all kinds of mallet percussion, which in an orchestra could be xylophone, vibraphone, and then marimba as well. And now marimba, even more lately, has a lot of solo repertoire that's been written for it. So some of that literature is really quite interesting to learn and sort of dive into. So we do a lot of that when we're in school as well. But it's really learning a whole bunch of different instruments and a whole lot of different musical settings.
I had a friend who was a percussionist and he was at Rice doing grad school, and I think he was subbing in Dallas when Christopher Aschenbach was there. And Aschenbach used to put him on bass drum, and he said, "I like the way you play bass drum." And he used to say, "I have no idea what it was that he thought was good about my bass drum playing." So how do you, I mean, the reason that we dread hearing those auditions a little bit is when you hear someone behind a screen playing bass drum, how do we decide who's the good bass drum player?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because
No, I mean, really, how do we decide who's the good bass drum player?
It's a feel thing.
It's a feel thing.
No, I mean, it's a really good question because we do so many different things, and but I also like to think about what is, if there's a skill of being a percussionist, what is it? And I think there are transferable skills from wine glasses to gong to snare drum to timpani. At its core, I mean, there's some technique, obviously, to being able to move your hands in an efficient, precise way. That's all the nitty gritty. But on a philosophical level, I feel like being a percussionist is searching for the sound, the best sound an instrument can make. And it's funny, on these wine glasses, we've had long conversations about, I think if I tilt it at this angle, and we're cheersing each other, and we've gotten very meticulous about, okay, you angle yourself that way, and if I hit right underneath the water line or something, you're finding exactly the spot where you get the most fundamental pitch and the cleanest articulation. And I think that's almost, in many ways, what we feel like we went to school for, is give me a book and I'll find out what sounds it can make or something like that.
So in some ways, it's an obsession with whatever instrument you are on at that moment.
A bit of an obsession, yeah, for sure. I mean, everything Johnny's saying, I'm even looking at the wine glasses right now, and I'm getting a little bit stressed because I know we're going to have to clean them later, and they're starting to develop these little bubbles inside of them. And believe it or not, these tiny little bubbles aren't good. They dampen the resonance of the glass, so you have to use. Luckily, there's a sink right over there.
Right,
so use that water. But if you find distilled water, then that has no bubbles inside. So yes.
Do you need distilled water for these? Okay, so we can. Yeah. So you buy your own wine glasses, by the way, too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. With I can see the markings on them for the pitches. And yeah. Since we're talking about the wine glasses, let's talk about the piece that you're going to perform. This is a really beautiful piece, a really exciting piece. Why don't you just tell us the little background, because it was written for you. I assume that you commissioned it.
And it relates back to, what Vic was saying when we started playing together in 2011. We started playing quartets, and so we played music that existed. We played music by our friends who, we didn't have enough money to commission them, but they were like, if you play it a bunch, that's enough. And so there was like this agreement between us that we'll play it a bunch of times, you'll write us a great piece, deal. So there was a lot of that happening. We always dreamed of having a concerto, and honestly, one of the names at the top of our list was Viet Quang, a friend of ours from school. He was a composer at Peabody with three of us, and also played clarinet, also played percussion, and an incredible composer, as you'll all hear later this week. And so it was kind of a pie-in-the-sky dream that Viet would write a percussion quartet concerto. We'd even talked to him about it, and just like, we have no idea who would play this with us or when it could possibly happen. But I feel like almost a year later or so, Viet called us and said, I have an opportunity to write a concerto. I don't even know if it was just a piece, right? I can just write a piece based on collaboration. It needs to involve chamber symphony. Can I include you guys and make it a percussion quartet concerto? And we're like, where can we sign? This is like, let's do it. And so this piece just kind of fell out of the sky in a way. And Viet, because it was based on collaboration, the piece is called Renewal, and it's commissioned in part or entirely by General Electric, their renewable energy sphere. They figured, let's have some art to go along with this. And so their only real instruction for Viet was like, we want it to be about working together and this sort of stuff. And so you'll see that for being a concerto where you think of a soloist, he's writing for four of us. He could have written for each of us as an individual, but that never happens. Throughout the entire 15 plus minutes of music, every moment of the piece, we are constantly working together. Even the cheersing of wine glasses is a perfect example. You can cheers yourself, and that's one cool sound, but half the fun of cheersing, maybe more than half the fun, is cheersing with someone else. And so we each have two glasses, and we can hit our own together, we can hit someone else's and hit our other two glasses together. All of the sounds are produced by us together. The middle movement is the same thing. We're playing essentially a drum set. It's fun, we've all talked about drum set. We get to play this like mega drum set in the second movement. Each of us has a kick drum and a hi-hat, and we all share a snare drum in the middle. And together we play this drum set beat that no single human could ever play. It's insane. But we share it, the four of us, and any one of our parts doesn't actually sound that interesting. It's like this broken thing, but you put them all together and you get all the pieces of the puzzle. And then finally, in the third movement, we're sharing a vibraphone, which is the metal xylophone. A lot of people see it has a pedal, and vibraphone and a glockenspiel, these bells, and also these crotales. We'll kind of demonstrate these up here too, these metal discs. And together, we play one melody. Again, any one person is just a piece of the melody playing every fourth note or so. But you put the four of us together, and even better with the orchestra. Right. Complete the whole thing, and it's this seamless melody that just like ascends like a sunrise all the way to the finish.
And you really do. I mean, when you all hear the piece, you will see that you're a single unit. So calling you the soloist really does make sense in the sense that even when we play multi-instrument concertos, Brahms double concerto, they have individual parts, but you really are always a single unit. Is that fair to say?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like what Johnny said, there's never really a moment where Ian's going to run over to the vibraphone and play a solo. It never really works that way in the traditional sense as a concerto, where we're all kind of like like together making the same sort of solo part happen.
When you worked with the composer, with Viet, you said that he is a percussionist also, so he has some skill in this. How involved were you in the compositional process, in giving input into what was possible, not possible, that kind of thing?
That's a good question. I think involvement in the composing process is something we think about a lot because, as you can imagine, when we're commissioning music, every composer is completely different. So sometimes they really want us to be involved, and other times maybe they have a couple of things they want to try, but they actually have all of their ideas. This particular piece came together very quickly, and for the most part, Viet actually came to us with pretty well-developed ideas, but he had a question as to if it was humanly possible.
Right, yeah.
And so this thing we're talking about of sharing this sort of giant drum set, a little bit is, I think, it's Viet writing to a little bit, I would say, a Sandbox strength. This thing where we can almost finish each other's sentences, where I can say half of a thing and it actually can make a whole. Rhythmically speaking, that's a thing that our quartet is really good at. That's one of our superpowers, and Viet really wrote to do that in this piece to the 10th degree. So he came to our studio and he was like, I don't know if this is possible, but let's try it. And we sort of stumbled through it, I think with just enough precision that he was like, it's gonna work, it's gonna be great. And then we had to go off and actually get good at doing that thing. But there's little examples like that where I think he was thinking, can this technique work? And we sort of if we can do a small section of it, then he sort of believes that the whole thing would be possible.
When you're working with modern composers, if they are not percussionists, if they don't have a background in percussion, I'm wondering what it's like. I mean, if they are asking things that you can't do, or if they don't know the capabilities. I just came back a week ago. I was in China for a new music festival with orchestra, and every single piece, the percussion, was on the first rehearsal. They look at me like, and they were asked to do things like make a plexiglass window go boop, things like that, different birds. And I'm sure you had been there. And so to what extent do you help educate composers about what you can and can't do as percussionists?
Definitely, and I'll just quickly say that I think it goes in both directions. So there's this huge advantage when a composer does have some experience with percussion. I think they can elicit a certain quality from us as a group, but then there's this other side of the coin that I think is also just as amazing, which is a composer comes to percussion as almost as if they're dropped down from space and they've never seen these instruments, and they sort of wonder almost like a child looking at these things, what could that instrument do that no one has thought of? Sometimes coming at something with less background or experience, you can bring something totally fresh to it. And so we see both sides of it. So there's some composers we work with that really intimately know percussion instruments, and then there's these other composers who are able to find these sounds that we've honestly never dreamed of, that are things that we've been playing our instruments for 20 or 30 years, and people can come up with things that we haven't imagined. I will say that usually we're there along the way to kind of help guide them to make the right choice with those sounds. So to write for it in the right way, or to understand how we're actually doing it, or we show them here's what I actually need to do to bend the plexiglass.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever. But I think that in many ways that's one of our missions as an organization, is to leave some of this music here better than what we found, and hopefully all these composers will know a little bit more about percussion after they've written this music.
Let's talk a little bit about extended techniques, but before we do that, you want to demonstrate the wine glasses so that people can kind of hear some of the things that we're talking about?
Right. So let's see. So as Johnny was saying, each of our glasses is tuned to one pitch, one note. So Johnny can demonstrate. So that's a C.
And this one here is an A.
Yeah, so if Johnny hits his C and his A together, we get an interval. And that interval starts to hint at some kind of harmony. Now, I have these two other completely different notes, and Victor has two other notes, and Ian has two other notes, and so suddenly our, more combinations of pitches mean more possibilities for harmony.
We'll hold mics for Jim. Will hold a mic, and I'll hold a mic.
Should we play a little video?
Sure. It's the best. And that's when the orchestra came back. And so you all have a lot of different styles of glasses.
That's true.
How many hours did you spend trying different glasses to see?
We've really honed the perfect set here. It's taken us a little while. I will say there have been some casualties along the way. One or two lost. We were lost to an airline. But for the most part, we've been really lucky. Johnny's got a really good packing system for the wine glasses now. They're carefully managed inside a suitcase. But yeah, so different shapes make different notes.
Yeah.
So the lower notes generally need a bigger wine glass, and Johnny has some of the really high notes, so he uses these little champagne glasses. But a lot of experimentation, a lot of weird looks in like secondhand stores. And the thing about going to a store that sells wine glasses is they don't really want to sell you one. They really want to sell you a whole set, even if you found the perfect one. And really, no matter how much convincing, they don't want to sell you one. So we sort of have opted for Salvation Armies and others. So yeah, we can basically go in and find, we know that without water, if it's a certain note, then with water, we know it can get to our eventual note.
I love your vibrato technique with the wine glass. I mean, that's one, because we've all seen tuned wine glasses, but I don't think I've seen the slosh, effect. So can you tell us about the crotales that you have here? And let's talk about what it means to say, I said extended technique as though we all know what that means. What does it mean to say an extended technique with a percussion instrument, or any instrument really?
Yeah, an extended technique is just, I guess, any technique that's out of the ordinary for the way you would play it. And I guess they're extended until they've been done enough times that it's practically normal. I wonder if there's ever a moment where pizzicato on the violin was extended or something.
Sure, there probably was. I mean, certainly like left-hand pizzicato, like Paganini, would have been an extended technique, and now it's fairly standard.
Right. Absolutely, yeah. And one that we get to have a lot of fun with in this piece is so the crotale, which is already a strange enough instrument for most people. Sometimes it's called an antique cymbal because it's a lot like a cymbal on a drum set, but it's tiny and it's actually specifically tuned to a pitch. So rather than if you hit a cymbal on a drum set, it goes, and that's not, you can't like hum along to that. But this. Find the note inside of it. Similarly, we've got another one here. It's a whole step down. And so you can have a whole chromatic octave of these and play melodies on them, and that's all standard and normal. But the extended technique part, there are actually a few of them. One that I'm excited to show you is if you dip it in water, we've got the water theme going here, it will actually bend the pitch downward. Actually, Terry, you can go ahead and demonstrate this. So. Pretty cool, right? Down and back up, and it's like, yeah, it almost feels like the note's like melting away or something like that. And that's kind of the genius of Viet, I think, the composer of this piece, is because that's a really cool technique, like, no doubt about it. But yet, with all of these things, he doesn't just stop at it being really cool. He actually turns it into something with like a meaning to it. And I think he literally does say that some of these chords should sound like they're melting in the sunshine or something like that. And even the bending of the note, every time I do it in the piece, I'm the one who has the joy of dipping the crotales in water. Every time, you can bend it down a step, and I think every time I do it, it leads to the next melody note. So it just glissando goes right down, through all these kind of.
And then the orchestra notes also. I mean, which is, he has incorporated the sounds that you make later into the orchestral sound, and we have what we play are called glissandi, where the strings are kind of bending their pitch, the trombones, which you can easily imagine. But it's so slow, it's not like just the whole thing feels like it's melting. That's a good description.
And I forgot to mention that each movement is dedicated to a different kind of sustainable energy. And the movement we're talking about here, talking about sunlight, all this good stuff, solar energy is the one that this movement is based on, with these melting chords and this kind of shimmering sound, right? Like I think of it as a very bright kind of sound.
So it's a leading question, but what's the weirdest instrument that you play in this concerto?
In this concerto, yes, we get to play air canisters in the second movement, which is the wind movement.
I've never seen that before. I mean, have you seen that before?
This was a first.
This was a first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And 4 of you playing these. These are like, the cans that you use to clean your keyboard off, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're fun because most percussion sounds are a sharp attack and then a decay, but with the air canisters, you can get some sustain on there and get a little which is extra fun.
You also bow the crotales in this, don't you? So you use a violin or a bass bow?
Bass bow is what we offer. Yeah, we bow the crotales, we bow the vibraphone. Smart of you to mention that, because another fun way for us to get a note that can actually grow and throughout it's just a standard bass bow is what we use. And if you run it along the edge of the crotale or the edge of the vibraphone bar, you can start from nothing and grow to the full sound of the instrument. It's really pretty fun to do.
It's a really great piece, and it also exists. We can sit back down if you want. It also exists in several different versions. There's the chamber orchestra version first, and then the full orchestra version, and then there's like a band version. Isn't there a woodwind quintet version?
Yeah, there's a wind. There's a wind symphony, like a chamber winds.
Okay.
There's a wind ensemble that we've done a few times. So yeah, a lot of different versions, and I think it kind of speaks to Viet's just energy and willingness to make new music and make new music with lots of different groups. Is that he wrote this one piece, but he's down to like arrange it for a different group. Like I think you name it, he'll make an arrangement of this piece for them.
And if you go on YouTube, you can see there are other percussion ensembles that have now taken up the piece. How does that feel to you that you commissioned this piece, you were the first piece, and now other people are playing the piece?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, like we were saying earlier, like our mission is to build more music for our ensemble. So when we go on YouTube and see other groups playing the piece that we kind of had a hand in commissioning, I think that's a super exciting thing to see. Yeah.
We have just a couple more minutes, but I thought let's see if anybody has any questions, because you're certainly the most unusual soloist group that we've had. Yes?
Okay, I have 2 questions. One is, when you go into vintage stores to audition the glasses, do you actually bring water and pour it in and stand there and then you check out?
We don't bring water, but I think we know sort of roughly when you put water in the glass, it makes the pitch go up. So if I know I need a C, it goes down. So if you know, apparently Johnny does it. If you know that you have a pitch that is very, very close to the pitch you need, without any water in it, it's a little higher, put a little bit of water in it, and you're actually you're gonna get that pitch. So if you're what we call a half step off, so if I know I need a C, and I hit the glass and it's a C sharp or even a D, like it's relatively close, then I know like we're gonna get the glass we need. We don't actually need the water.
Does it change the timbre though when you put the water in?
It does, yeah. And I think actually, like generally, not like too much water would dampen the glass. So if you're like, we get it. So if I like that one of those glasses there, if we kept filling it with water, the pitch would continue to go down, but then the resonance of the glass, we would lose a lot of that, right? So you want to find like a pitch that's close enough to where you put just a little bit of water in it, or fill it halfway. As you can see, most of these are filled just about halfway. Then you know you're going to get the pitch you need, but it's still going to resonate pretty freely.
You had another question?
What is Sandbox?
Yeah, Sandbox is, thanks for asking that. Yeah, I mean, when we were coming up with a name for the group, I think we wanted something that felt kind of playful, and something that kind of everyone could hear and sort of relate to in some way. And we also wanted it to sort of reflect why we came together to be in a percussion quartet, which was we just came together to play this music because we really loved it. We really loved the music. We really loved playing that music together with these 4 people. Not so dissimilar from how you might see 4 kids playing in a sandbox, right? Just kind of getting together to do their thing. So that was kind of where the name came from, yeah. Yes?
Are glasses crystal or are they just glass?
The questions are they glass or crystal on the glasses, or does it matter?
I think they're glass. I suppose you could use crystal. I don't think that, we found that the glasses sound pretty good. And I think crystal glass is probably a little more expensive. And then also probably a little bit, maybe tend to be a little bit more fragile as well. Maybe they're, I think, maybe his original, okay, maybe Viet's original set when he wrote the piece was maybe crystal glasses. Actually, this piece, the first movement, comes from this other piece that Viet wrote called Water, Wine, Brandy, Brine, which is a piece that we have played before. It's entirely for wine glasses, more than just the 8 wine glasses you see here. It's a longer piece. And when he was writing the concerto, he sort of stole that idea that he had in that piece for the first movement of the concerto. And I think when he wrote that piece, I think maybe he wrote that piece on a set of crystal wine glasses, which maybe sound a little better. I don't know. We'll have to try it out sometime. But I think we found that the glasses sound pretty good, and they're
we do amplify you. I mean, because they're so delicate that we do amplify that sound so that it can be heard over the orchestra.
That is true, because the orchestra part is also amazing.
It's amazing.
And beautiful.
And there are, I should mention, there's some extended techniques that the orchestra plays, especially in that first movement where the winds and the brass are blowing through their instruments and just creating air without pitch. Strings are playing on high harmonics, and so they're really interesting sounds combined with yours. Trumpet mutes.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, Viet is, a percussionist, composer, but a masterful orchestrator as well.
Really, really colorful. I mean, this piece is all about the different palettes and colors that you can create with this large ensemble of the orchestra and the percussion ensemble. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
When you are given the piece, I want to know what the music looks like. What do you have in the book?
It's a great question.
Yeah, and the music looks a lot like, you know, if you were to see piano music or something, it's got a staff with the 5 lines, and all the rhythms are written the conventional way, but there's always this key at the beginning that will tell you that, instead of, when you see what looks like an E or something like that on the staff, you're not going to play an E, you're going to hit the kick drum. And when you see this, that means that's the snare drum. And when you see this, that's the hi-hat. And often this is what we go back and forth with a lot with the composers, is how do you want to see this written? And I think hopefully it's good for our brains or something, because I feel like we're learning new keys, new clefs all the time for how we're reading. Every piece is for different instruments, and so there's a different key for what the music means, basically.
From an orchestral standpoint, it's actually a very non-threatening piece. I mean, you put it in front of the orchestra, it makes sense. Yeah, there is a key for them as well, saying, when you see this X, that means you're blowing through the instrument without a pitch. That's unusual, but it's still written in the staff. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that there is a section that has changing meters, but for the most part, it's a pretty steady barring, and then the rhythms change underneath it, but it's doesn't make it so difficult that all we're thinking about is, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I mean, we're thinking about kind of standard barring from the orchestra perspective. So from our perspective, it's fairly normal, I guess would be the word for it. Other questions?
I'm going off the key here. 4 of you, you've been together, 14 years? I can see just looking at you, you have very different personalities. How well do you get along?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, especially with percussion and playing together, and we're traveling together, and we're packing gear, and it goes beyond friendship. Honestly, it's like we're working together, but we're also making music together. We're making business decisions together, but we know each other's families really well. Everyone has to make sacrifices to make this all work, and so it does feel like really an extended family at this point. I think we love the things that are different and similar about ourselves. I think we celebrate all of that.
So you never get in an argument.
Yeah, exactly. But even arguments are good
Not always
things.
bad.
It's good to. I think all of our worlds grow because we always come out the other side having learned something, and everyone's better because we have now agreed on this decision or whatever it is. But no, it's a wonderful thing getting to spend this much time with people, and I think we don't take it for granted. We know how lucky we are that we're actually able to be stronger friends after almost 15 years of this. Because a lot of groups try to do this, and I don't ever think if a group doesn't succeed, I don't think it's because they weren't good enough. I often think it's just the personalities didn't mesh, and so I think we take that part really seriously.
When I introduced you, I said this is very unusual for us to have a percussion quartet as a soloist ensemble, but a quartet in music is not unusual at all, in the sense that string quartets as an institution, I mean, they are as old as orchestras are, and the idea of string quartets that tour and perform and play is pretty common. Do you feel like your percussion quartet is in some ways the same or similar model as a string quartet? Do you work that way?
Maybe a bit, yeah. I think we probably looked to string quartets in the sense of taking a lot of inspiration from the way that they communicated together and the way that how serious they took their music when they were sort of rehearsing or performing. I think that was, at least we took that kind of inspiration when we were kind of starting out. How do they talk to each other? How do they build their business? How do they rehearse together? How do they perform together? All of those things. So I think we saw, and we were like, I think percussion can do that as well.
With a string quartet, there's an intimacy that you build from that time that you spend working together. You could take 4 superstar players, put them together to play a quartet, and they're not going to sound as good as a quartet that's been living and working together for years, even if they're not the superstar string players. As percussionists, is it the same kind of thing? I mean, you don't have the same relationship in the sense that one of you isn't playing the bass line every time. You're all sharing instruments, but you still, I imagine, have to have an intimacy of being able to communicate non-verbally.
Definitely. Yeah, and I think you honed in on a really interesting thing about our music, which is that sometimes we play completely different instruments, and sometimes the role of first violin could rotate around the ensemble pretty freely. In fact, that could change within any given piece. Those kind of forms are not as strictly codified in a percussion quartet as they are in the string quartet. So we have much more flexibility in terms of I think if someone wrote a brand new piece, we get asked this all the time, how do you decide which part you want to play? And sometimes it's totally...
Doesn't matter too much?
Sometimes it doesn't matter. In a piece like this, it actually doesn't matter so much because it's so evenly spread among the 4 of us. And in another piece, it might just be Johnny wants to play X instrument when we get that piece, and so he does that, and it's totally fine. And it might mean that his part is going to lead a lot in that particular piece, and I think all 4 of us would probably be that sounds good.
Yeah. We're just a little bit over time, but any questions? We probably do Loretta's.
Do you ever play with sand in your glass?
Do you play with sand? Your name is Sandbox. Do you use sand in any of your instruments?
Right, I can't think of that. Yeah, so it's funny you ask. This same composer, Viet, he wrote us another piece that is called Sandbox, that uses this giant wooden box that we all stand around, and we primarily play it with sandpaper. So it's even more on the nose than sand in a wine glass. It is literally a sanding box. Good question.
Do you perform with music ever, always, never?
Good question. So in terms of like memorizing, I think it's a mix for us. If we're using music, it's not usually like a real score. Usually we've sort of reduced the score to some kind of cheat sheet situation that will tell us the things we need to know, but it doesn't always look exactly like the part looked when we first got it. So we're at like some stage in between like literally reading every note and kind of like looking at the shapes and knowing like, oh, that triangle means do this section of the piece. I think for this piece we have a little bit of mix of things. So one of the movements, no music, another, there's some cheat sheets hiding on stage, and it's kind of a combination, but we don't really make it a rule as a group, like we must memorize all of our music. It's more like, what's gonna make us play it better, and if having some kind of cheat sheet is good, or if memorizing it is better, then we'll usually try to do that.
I should mention that when on YouTube there's a video of you, I think at Curtis, when you're performing it, and there was video that showed from overhead. So we've stolen that idea because we have our concerts are filmed, and so we're going to mount one of the cameras up overhead, and then we actually are going to show it on the screen during the performance as well. So you will be able to see up close what they're doing, even if you're sitting far back in the hall. That will be shown on the screen.
That's so cool. That's a perspective like really only the four of us get.
Yeah,
it's just so cool to get to see from that point.
Yeah, when I saw that video, I thought, oh, I think we might be able to do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're looking at that as well. Let's all please give Sandbox Percussion a great round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you all for coming to hear this. Thank you those of you who tuned in online. And this is going to be a spectacular show on Saturday night. So I look forward to seeing you all there. So thanks again.
Yeah.